Hello everyone, this is Dr. Shijun Wang from Weber State. Today we're going to talk about Opus 10 number 6. This is not a very popular piece, right? A lot of competitions and a lot of schools excluded this piece for their auditions or for their tapes because it's a slow etude, right? And also, if we put this into the group of nocturnes, it's not as pretty. The melody is not as pretty as some of the famous nocturnes. But why did Chopin choose to put this as an etude? What is the point of exercising something? I think here Chopin is such a revolutionary, has a revolutionary mind. First of all, the piece has 4 voices, and you need to achieve different tone qualities for all the 4 layers. So for instance, the top is very deep sound, and it's so vocal-like, with this big leap. It's such like a portamento feeling to it. And here, of course, like in Bach fugue, when you have the answer, it's quieter, and then it's played by 2 hands, right? Between the 2 hands, you have to match the tone. Another very significant importance of this piece is this harmony. Many people say this kind of foreshadows the Tristan chord. Yeah? Yeah. What about Tristan chord that is so important? It's chromaticism, right? Everything moves chromatically, so that it creates this ambiguity of the tonal center. We do not know what key is this. Everything is moving chromatically, including the bass, right? Every single line. So here, Chopin kind of foreshadowed. He had this idea of in the bass, and he also in between 3rd measure and 4th measure. He had this idea of moving the chords without a proper resolution, right? I don't know if any of you have watched the entire Wagner opera or Richard Strauss. My first time listening to Richard Strauss is that after the whole thing, I was so exhausted because the chord never resolved, right? The sonority that you're used to just leads you to the next chord for 4 hours. It's really exhausting. But that's much later compared to this piece, right? Chopin wrote this. The whole set of Opus 10 was written when he was probably between 19 to 22. So the latest this could be written was published 1832. So it's very, very early attempts of this crossing the harmonic boundary. And also one thing that's really interesting is his use of inharmonics that Brahms, of course, later on, 20, 30 years later, tried a lot. In between measure 20 and 21, you have this B flat turning into A sharp with a tie, with a held note. If you're a string player, you'll understand that actually the actual pitch of A sharp is a little higher than B flat, because B flat resolves to A, and A sharp goes up to resolve to B. So here, and of course, the keyboard today, because of the well-tempered tonal tuning system, then everything is slightly equal. So A sharp and B flat is the same pitch. But we can bend our ears, we can bend our expectation up. We can imagine the sound leading to a different direction. Okay, another point that I want to make is the pedal. This is a very good exercise for students to learn how to properly pedal a chromatic piece like this. Pedal is probably the worst nightmare for most of piano teachers. You cannot really tell how far, how long to hold the pedal to a very, very accurate way, because every piano is different, every hall is different, and when the hall is empty, the acoustic is very different from when the hall is packed. So how do we teach our students how to pedal? How much pedal do they need? How long do they hold their pedal? I think we have to teach them the aesthetics of what's the good sound, and they have to learn how to listen so that they can use their ear to react on the spot. They have to keep processing what they're playing if the acoustic is too wet or too dry. But one thing we can train our students is to tell them to have different layers of pedaling. I think any professional or any music school students should at least have 5 to 10 different layers of pedaling, right? Not everything always down to the bottom like this, but maybe 50% or maybe 10%, so that the level is adjustable. Here, when I play this, I actually held my pedal pretty long, but with only 10% of the pedal, so that these chromatics doesn't sound muddy with a deep, long pedal. All right. So last week, I told everybody that I would share a little bit of my experience of the editions and then the recordings. I personally have 6 or 7 different etude editions. I had this given to me as a gift by like a very old lady who she told me that her great grandmother passed it on to her. I think this is one of the earliest edition, the German edition. This was Peters in Leipzig. It's not the very first edition of that Chopin sent to the German publisher. I think the first German edition was Breitkopf, but this is very, very old, right? I mean, the pages fell off, and you can tell the paper is so fragile that I don't use this. Basically, this is like my collection. And of course, there's the Podrivsky, there's the IKEA, and there's also the Coteau, and then I actually have one Chopin etude edited by Mikuli, one of Chopin's students. My favorite that I use all the time, that I bring it with me when I perform, is the Badura Skodas version. In terms of the editions, Chopin is such a business genius that, because back then there was no copyright protection, so he published the same piece in different countries at the same time, so that he get money from different publishers instead of just publishing one time. So both of these sets, Opus 10 and Opus 25, were sent to English publisher, French publisher, and German publisher, and he got, of course, 3 sums of money. And of course, when you copy or when he composes, he makes some variations. He makes some switches of notes. He may change ideas, so that every edition, every original edition is slightly different. He also teaches piano and he had a lot of markings on his students' scores. So we have also his students contributing to the edition or to edits that, oh, Chopin told me here is not a G natural, it's a G flat. So we have to believe those, right? Because it's Chopin's own marking. So here, this edition, Puigcerda Skoda, he provided us, I think, with 7 or 8. Oh, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 different resources. Some from the English edition, some from French, some from German, some from the manuscript, some from the student's handwriting, or the handwriting of Chopin himself. So, and he gives you the option. He tells you certain places, this edition says so and so, and the other edition is different, and he gives you the option to choose on your own. And how do we choose? Everything is from Chopin. I think we should choose whatever we think is good, or with whatever we like. In terms of the recordings, there are really so many of them. I know somebody who collected, he told me, more than 60 different sets of all Chopin etudes played by 60 different pianists. I'm going to mention a couple that I think is important and is also my personal favorite. The first one is actually not by Pollini or Pariah, it's by this German, very old German pianist Backhaus. And I think he had the first commercial recording of all the etudes. It was released in 1927. A couple of years after, only a couple of years after the electric microphone was invented, so that to record piano is possible. There are wrong notes in it, and he also, of course, sometimes make up some transitions in between pieces, which I love. People might have different ideas now, but that period of the Romantic generation really it's a normal thing to do. The way he played was with such a fire, and it was such original. And with wrong notes, I actually prefer the wrong notes than everything digitally edited and everything to perfection. And of course, Koto had the recording of everything, of all the etudes, and it's a lot full of wrong notes. But many things we have to take into consideration. You can't edit those back then. And also he was in his late 50s. So his technique is not at the peak of his career. And of course, by the way, he spent so much time teaching and publishing the exercises. Maybe he didn't have enough time to practice, or maybe he just did not care of the wrong notes, which I'm very jealous of. Rao has a very good recording. In my opinion, a little bit too straightforward, a little bit too square, but considering him being such a serious musician, everything has to be exactly what the composer writes. It's not a surprise, but really his technique is so natural. The sound quality is so nice. It's one recording very worth listening to. In terms of American pianists, I actually like John Browning's recording in the late 60s. Check it out, full of characters. And my personal favorite is actually by this French pianist Samson Francois, who studied with Koto, and of course he didn't live a very long life. He was smoking, he was using drugs, and he had like a free lifestyle. But he recorded the whole set when he was 27. So brilliant technique with a lot of original ideas, musically so natural. And of course there's the Russian group, right? Ashkenazi, Margolov, and Sokolov made the recording of all 25. I think it's a live performance, fantastic. Richter, Kissin, Rubinstein, Lipati, they all had collections, selections from it, not the whole thing. And my personal favorite of, of all Chopin Etude recordings is by Ignaz Friedman. He played with such a free spirit with such brilliant technique, right? My favorite spot is when he played this, the black key. He used a glissando down by octave. I mean, everything is such with a late romantic spirit. Everything's on YouTube. Please check it out. How do we judge? How do we evaluate a good recording? I hope not by accuracy, not by only the speed, but by the character, by the lively musical ideas, by originality, also by how much your own ideas, how much musical thoughts you put into it. At the very end, these sets is not exercises. These are musical character pieces. So I hope you can explore more on the recordings. And if you have any comments, any suggestions, any feedbacks, please leave your comments underneath the video. I will see you next week with the Toccata Etude Opus 10 number 7. Thank you.